Welcome back to the deep dive. So, this week you sent us something pretty interesting, a first-hand account, a texto pagado looks like, diving right into hypnosis.
Hmm.
And the main question seems clear. Is hypnosis, the real deal, or is it just Schumk and mirrors? This experiment they did tries to get right at that.
Yeah, and what jumped out at me was their starting point.
Mm-hmm.
They were skeptical, openly so.
Right.
They admit their doubts, say they want actual proof,
Yeah.
you know, not just confirmation bias. They're looking for answers for you, for anyone wondering if this stuff is legit.
Exactly. And before they even start, they sort of define hypnosis,
Yeah.
this trance-like state, right? Somewhere between awake and asleep.
Uh-huh.
But they stress this key thing. Your own will sets the limit. You won't do anything under hypnosis you wouldn't normally do, which, well, that brings up the whole control question immediately, doesn't it?
It really does. And interestingly, it doesn't click right away. The hypnosis, I mean. Yeah, there are these initial tries that just fizzle. Like the name, you've forgotten your name. They try, but nope, still there. It shows it's not just flipping a switch.
And then there's that bit about the ducks turning into sharks. Todos patos son tiburones.
Yeah, sounds kind of silly, right?
A little. But these false starts are important, I think. They show it wasn't instant magic.
Totally. It makes the later stuff, when it does seem to work, feel, well, more earned maybe,
Mm-hmm.
more significant. It mirrors their own journey from doubt towards, well, we'll get to that.
Builds the suspense a bit.
Yeah,
Makes you wonder, okay, what actually changes?
right. It sets the stage. So this brings us to the mano iman, the magnet hand. That seems to be the turning point.
Okay, unpack that. What happens?
But one experimenter, Ronald, tells the other, Marcel, his hand is like a magnet. Mi mano es como un imán. And as he moves it, Marcel will fall towards it. Vas a caer. And apparently it works. They're surprised. The person doing the suggesting even says it felt like the suggestion became truth.
Yeah.
Like a physical reality for him.
Whoa. That's a sudden shift. From sharks to involuntary movement?
It is. And that's where it gets really compelling, isn't it? How can just words, a suggestion, have such a direct physical impact? Especially after those initial fails.
Yeah, it makes it feel less like just, going along with it.
Exactly. It points to this powerful link between expectation, belief, and how our body responds. Maybe even just a temporary belief.
So from the magnet hand, things start escalating.
Seems like it. They move on to other things, like the hand rising, picturing helium balloons attached. Hay se notar como vuestra mano va a ir subiendo poco a poco.
And their hands just float up.
Apparently, yes. Almost involuntary is how it's described. Like the body's just responding directly to the image, the idea.
It's getting weirder.
And then it goes deeper. Marcel apparently forgets his name. They start calling him Ruben, and he responds to it.
Okay, wait. Forgetting your own name. That's fundamental.
It suggests a deeper level of influence, doesn't it? Not just physical actions, but identity itself. Makes you wonder how suggestible those layers of self might be in that state.
And then the ants. Tell me about the ants.
Yes, vais a ver que en el suelo hay muchísimas hormigas. They're told there are ants crawling everywhere.
And they see them. Or feel them.
Both, it sounds like. They both experience this sensation, ants crawling on them. But here's the really strange part.
Uh-huh.
They knew it wasn't real. They were consciously aware. But they couldn't stop reacting, physically brushing them off. Lo peor es que éramos conscientes, pero no podíamos parar de hacerle caso.
That disconnect. Knowing something isn't real but feeling it anyway, that's bizarre.
It really is. And maybe revealing, right? It suggests our subconscious can trigger real physical responses even when our logical brain knows better. Different layers of processing, perhaps.
It seems like the suggestion layer was just overriding the logical one in that moment.
That's one way to look at it, yeah. Then they get a bit playful with a blue ball.
Playful how?
The suggestions get wilder. The ball will bounce back from across the room. Mira como bota chula. Throw it, it'll come back. La puedo tirar allí que me vuelva la mano. Even goes around the earth and returns. Da la vuelta a la tierra y te vuelve por aquí.
Okay, now that sounds like they're pushing it.
I think he knew that. They even acknowledged that people just reading or hearing about it, the listener, might think they're just acting. Vosotros. Pensáis que nosotros estamos actuando.
Addressing the skepticism head on.
Right. It highlights how subjective this all is. What feels utterly real in the state might look like performance from the outside.
So where do they go from there? They've shown these, demonstrations.
They aim higher. There's this suggestion for deep sleep. Dormir fuertemente y más profundamente. And they explicitly state the goal. To prove hypnosis is real, beyond doubt. Si es imposible que tengáis claro si la hipnosis es real o no.
Setting the bar high, trying to get that irrefutable proof they mentioned at the start.
Exactly. Which leads them into the next phase, tackling real, deep-seated fears.
Ugh, okay. This feels like the core test, doesn't it? Using hypnosis for something potentially therapeutic, or at least challenging. They focus on Marcel first.
Yes, Marcel. He apparently has significant fears, insects, and blood.
So how do they test it?
They start with a cockroach,
Yeah.
something he reportedly reacted badly to just the day before. Under hypnosis, though, nothing. No reaction.
Just completely neutral.
Total lack of aversion, according to the account, which is a dramatic shift, right? It suggests hypnosis can significantly alter emotional responses to triggers. Makes you think about phobias differently, maybe.
Definitely. Okay, cockroach.
Yeah.
Neutral. What next?
A snake.
Ooh, okay. Same neutrality.
Not exactly. This is where it gets even stranger. Instead of neutral, he becomes enthusiastic. Actually wants the snake to bite him. Incluso intentó que la mordiera.
Wait, what? Enthusiastic about a snake bite? That's not just suppressing fear, that's flipping it entirely.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It suggests hypnosis might not just dampen fear, but could potentially, maybe, change the whole emotional meaning of something, at least for a while. How flexible are our fears, really?
That's a big question. Okay, cockroach, snake. What else?
The grand finale for Marcel. The most dangerous scorpion in the world.
Seriously?
He touches it, but he describes feeling totally detached, like watching himself do it. Como si no estuviera despierto. Physically interacting, but the emotional connection seems muted, severed almost.
Like an observer in his own body.
That detached feeling comes up a lot in hypnosis accounts. It suggests some kind of filter on how sensory or emotional input is processed, a different way of engaging, maybe less intense.
And then there was something about a frog, an impromptu test.
Right, a biting frog. And Marcel says he feels no pain when it bites.
No pain.
But he still flinches. He still has the startled response. Dolor, no noto, pero sigue el susto.
Huh. So, pain perception affected, but the basic reflex is still there.
Seems like it. Suggests maybe hypnosis can influence pain signals or their interpretation, but doesn't shut down all automatic responses equally. It's complex.
Okay, so that's Marcel's journey through his fears. What about Ronald? He had a fear too, right? Blood?
Yes, Ronald's goal was to overcome his fear of blood by actually donating blood while under hypnosis.
Ambitious. How did that go?
Well, let's just say it didn't go quite as smoothly as Marcel's insect and reptile encounters.
Oh, what happened?
It turned into a bit of a comedy of errors, honestly. Real-world chaos intervened.
Like what?
First, a microphone malfunctioned. Then they got stopped by security.
Oh, dear.
Then the head of the medical team apparently gave them a telling off.
Not going well.
And the final hurdle. After all that, they found out he couldn't donate anyway because he traveled recently. Rules are rules.
So the hypnosis part never even got properly tested in that situation.
Pretty much. It's almost funny, but it's also really telling, isn't it?
Oh.
So it highlights the limits. You can be in whatever internal state deeply hypnotized, supposedly, but the outside world still happens. External factors can just completely derail the plan. Hypnosis operates within reality, not separate from it.
A very practical, if frustrating, lesson for them, I guess.
Definitely. So after all this roller coaster of experiences, what did the experimenters themselves conclude? How did they define hypnosis based on what they went through?
Good question. They described it as, let's see, un estado en el que tú te concentras para hacerle caso sin pensar. A state where you focus intently on the hypnotist's words, sort of bypassing critical thought for a moment.
And they talk about choice, right? That internal negotiation.
Yes. Todo rato tienes las dos opciones. You always have two options. Keep following the suggestions, tuning out your critical thinking, or step out of the trance.
That's key. It implies you're not just a puppet. There's an element of active participation, of allowing. It's not total loss of control.
They use that analogy of pretending to sleep. Realmente no te duermes, pero se te muere el cuerpo. You're not actually asleep, but your body feels heavy, passive, mind-aware body, less responsive on its own.
Yeah, that captures that feeling of physical lethargy some people describe. And ultimately, they kind of boiled it down to being convinced.
Convinced.
Te convence de lo que te diga, y eso le llaman hypnosis. The hypnotist convinces you of something. And that state of being convinced, of accepting the suggestion as reality, is what they call hypnosis. Puts a lot of weight on belief, doesn't it?
It really does, which ties into their final thought. Tanto si crees que puedes como si no estás en lo cierto.
Whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right.
That famous quote, applying it directly to hypnosis, suggests your own mindset is maybe the most crucial factor.
So wrapping up this deep dive into the source you sent, it's quite a journey. We see these really compelling examples where hypnosis seems to have a profound effect, especially with Marcel's fears. Absolutely. That snake reaction is particularly striking. It wasn't just fear removal. It was something else entirely, very unexpected.
But then you have Ronald's blood donation attempt, crashing against the rocks of, well, real life. Bureaucracy, technical glitches.
A grounding counterpoint. It reminds us that internal states, however altered, still have to navigate the messy external world.
So the source leaves us with this kind of nuanced picture. Hypnosis isn't simple. It seems to involve intense focus, heightened suggestibility, but it's tangled up with belief, awareness, and maybe even an element of ongoing choice.
It's clearly more than just play acting for these individuals, but it's maybe not the complete mind control some people imagine either. It's somewhere complex in between.
Which brings it back to you listening. Based on this experiment, this texto pagado, where do you land on this? Where's the line between powerful suggestion and a genuinely different state of consciousness?
And maybe more importantly, how much does your own belief system, your expectations, potentially shape how you might experience something like this?
It's definitely food for thought, thinking about our own suggestibility, the power of belief. It touches on a lot.
It certainly does. This is a fascinating source, offering a very personal window into a complex phenomenon. Thanks for sending it our way.
Absolutely. Keep them coming. We look forward to the next deep dive.